A very good morning to you and welcome to the news at 10, reaching you live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority in Abuja. I am Muslima Sholebo.
And I'm Abdul Malik Adio. Many thanks for joining us on the news. Let's begin with the headlines.
Nigerian military inducts new motorized weaponry to boost the fight against insurgency.
President Buhari holds strategic meeting with Borno State Governor on prevailing security challenges.
The National Assembly insists on transparency, recommends centralized account for all COVID-19 funds.
Plus, Inspector General of Police orders continued social restriction compliance in affected states during Easter.
The federal government has promised to take more decisive and proactive measures towards ensuring that the Boko Haram menace in parts of the country is totally eliminated for sustainable peace and development.
President Muhammadu Buhari gave the assurance during a strategic engagement with the governor of Borno State, Professor Babagana Umaru Zulum, on the prevailing security situation following Chadian military operations and the fringes of Lake Chad. State House correspondent Adamu Sambo reports.
Governor Babagana Umara Zulum was in the State House to brief the president on the recent military action against Boko Haram by Chad Republic on the shores of Lake Chad and its implications on Nigeria's national security. Chad was responding to the killing of nearly 100 of its soldiers by the insurgents. President Muhammadu Buhari and Governor Zulum, after critically analyzing the situation, expressed the belief that time has come to once and for all put to an end the senseless acts of terror by Boko Haram and other criminal elements operating in the region.
Honestly speaking, we are apprehensive because of the ongoing operations by the Chadians. Right now, most of the Boko Haram are fleeing the shores of the Lake Chad, the areas of the Chad Republic, and they are now coming to the northern Borno State and then to southern Borno State. And there's need for us to now provide some counter-insurgency attacks.
So what did the president tell you?
This is the right time that the government of Nigeria, under his leadership, will do everything possible to support the MNJTF and others to be proactive enough to contain the situation, to deal with them decisively with a view to ending the crisis, so that they shouldn't occupy some other areas in the northern states as well as in the Sambisa Reserve.
From the State House, Adamu Sambo, NTA News.
And in the meantime, the Embassy of the Republic of Chad has condemned and denounced the dubious videos and images wrongly attributed to President Idris Deby, which is circulating on the social media. The report.
Of the Republic of Chad has brought to the knowledge of Nigeria of a misleading video and images circulating on the web and in some online platforms, including print media. The Chad Embassy noted that these dubious videos and images attributed to the President of the Republic of Chad, Idris Deby Itno, is dated back to 2015 with completely distorted remarks taken out of context and alleging inaction or non-participation of the Nigerian army in the fight against Boko Haram. The embassy hereby disassociates from such, rejects it, and also condemns it in strong terms, regretting the misinformation which it says only aims at deteriorating the cordial relationship between the two countries, as well as the cooperation established between defense and security forces of both sister and neighboring countries bound by history, geography, culture, and blood. The embassy commends the mutual understanding, regular consultations, and active solidarity that exists between the sister countries and the two leaders. The embassy also pointed out the qualitative development that has occurred in all areas of bilateral cooperation between the two countries, with Nigeria as #1 economic partner, and both nations require further rapprochement to solve security challenges to achieve sustainable development. To this end, therefore, the Chad Embassy is counting on the media organizations to consolidate common interests of both countries towards sub-regional and continental integration, pointing to the cooperation established in the framework of the Lake Chad Basin Commission and the common fight carried out together within the multinational Joint Task Force as perfect illustrations. It further stated that both countries cannot be distracted from their common goal of restoring peace, security and stability in the whole sub-region for a sustainable development mutually profitable to both countries.
Now, faced with environmental degradation on one hand and insurgency on the other, the Lake Chad region is a shadow of its former glory, leading Nigeria and Chad to strategize on fighting insurgency in the region. Correspondent Najatu Tijani reports.
Understanding that these challenges are the root cause of the cycle of violence and insecurity in the region, this meeting between Ministers of Defense and Chiefs of Defense Staff of both nations is a critical step in resolving the crisis.
I must also add that the meeting holding at this auspicious trying moment of universal lockdown underscores the premium our government places on security of our nation.
Ça, je profite de l'occasion pour remercier le président nigérian et le gouvernement pour l'appui qui ne cesse de donner à notre force commune qui est le CBLT, notre structure, et à tous les pays dans cette lutte contre le Boko Haram.
Recent achievements made by the multinational Joint Task Force, comprising Nigeria, Niger and Chad, in fighting insecurity warranted an evolution in war tactics against the insurgents to attain the common goal of ridding the region of insurgency. Naja'atu Tijani, NTA News.
In the meantime, more than 50 Buffalo four-wheel all-terrain vehicles have been inducted in Abuja by the Nigerian military to increase the mobility and combat readiness and efficiency of troops against Boko Haram and ISWAP terrorists in northeastern Nigeria. Defense correspondent Najatu Tijani reports.
Offering a powerful engine and traction common in four-wheel drives, these vehicles are a force multiplier which can be beneficial in all terrains and other difficult driving conditions.
All the formation and units of Nigerian Army across the country have continued to be issued with various types of vehicles for troops mobility, movement of logistics, and combat maneuvers.
The Armed Forces of Nigeria says it is repositioning itself to be a formidable fighting force. And now that the army has inducted these new gun trucks, the battle is being taken to Boko Haram. Meanwhile, the Defense Media Operations says the Nigerian component of the multinational Joint Task Force has continued to neutralize Boko Haram and ISWAP terrorists in the Lake Chad area, recovering various weapons in the process. Naja'atu Tijani, NTA News.
The oil market is in just over 1 month has changed beyond expectations. The supply and demand fundamentals Secretary General of OPEC, Mohamed Sanusi Barkindo, said is horrifying, with expected excess supply volumes of them on the market beyond anything seen before.
Now, to stop the industry from further bleeding, Barkindo's call is for urgent action in the interest of all. The question now is, will the 9th extraordinary OPEC and non-OPEC ministerial meeting be able to stop the bleeding? Lydia Sampson has more on this.
The meeting is being held via a web-based seminar in view of developments surrounding COVID-19 pandemic, and countries are joining from their respective countries. OPEC Secretary General Mohammed Sanusi Barkindo lamented that the global oil market is already seeing some production shut-ins, companies filing for bankruptcy, and tens of thousands of jobs being lost. Barkindo described the scenario as unprecedented in modern times. The outlook for non-OPEC supply growth in 2020 has also fallen by over 1.5 million barrels per day, although this is nowhere near the drop in oil demand. Due to COVID-19, OPEC Secretary General said oil market is seeing significant less revenue coming into treasuries, which evidently has major consequences, and the limits of the market is being tested on many fronts. The industry, he said, is likely to see further breaches in logistical capacity for ships, pipelines, terminals, and processing units, and it is clear that available storage capacity is quickly filling up. Barkindo lamented the grisly shadow hanging over all, stressing that the market must not allow the shadow to envelop it. He called on oil producers to look at the market outlook and stand shoulder to shoulder to help the vital global industry survive. In Abuja, Lydia Samson, NTA News.
Now, the Nigerian Center for Disease Control, NCDC, says as at 9:30 p.m., 9th April 2020, 14 new cases of COVID-19 have been reported in Nigeria, bringing the total number of confirmed cases to 288. Of the 14 new cases, 13 are in Lagos and 1 in Delta State. 51 patients have so far been discharged and 6 deaths recorded. Meanwhile, the Nigerian Center for Disease Control yesterday apologized for erroneously reporting 2 new cases in Bauchi State. The NCDC states that following further review, it was confirmed that there were repeat tests for previously confirmed cases. They assured Nigerians that they remain committed to ensuring transparent, accurate reporting of test results.
Now, the Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, says the federal government is increasing measures in curbing the spread on COVID-19 in the country and wants governments and states, especially those that share borders with neighboring countries, to be proactive in tracing the cases. The minister disclosed this while appearing on NTA's Good Morning Nigeria, explaining that efforts on containment and mitigation by the federal government remains on course. Lai Mohammed also stressed that every stakeholder must play his part in the fight at ending the pandemic in Nigeria.
Now, the 7 more patients, 1 female and 6 male, have fully recovered and been discharged from the mainland hospital Yaba after testing negative twice consecutively for COVID-19. This brings the total number to 39 discharged patients in Lagos. 3 of the discharged patients are foreign nationals, 2 Ukrainians and 1 Italian.
And the National Assembly's engagement with critical government organizations on the containment of COVID-19 this week rounded off with the Presidential Task Force on Control of the Virus.
At the meeting, President of the Senate, Ahmed Lawan, stressed the need for a single centralized account for all COVID-19 funds to be managed by a separate body. National Assembly correspondent Ignatius Oko reports.
It's been a 3-day painstaking engagement between the 2 arms of government against the scourge of COVID-19. President of the Senate, Ahmed Lawan, stressed accountability and transparency in the management of all COVID-19 funds. His fear was allayed by the chairman of the Presidential Committee, Boss Mustafa.
Under a certain platform, one platform, not every organization is running its own show. There could be duplication. Working at cross purposes, at the end of the day, there will certainly not be efficiency.
We run a constitutional democracy that provides an essential ingredient called checks and balances.
The PTF would not be directly involved in the collection and disbursement of cash donations for COVID-19. The Accountant General of the Federation has already published the account details for collection.
The task force demanded some legislations to contain the virus and put in place preventive measures in the future.
And that some who are positive disappeared from view, and we are not sure how we are going to be able to actually account for the transmission that goes on.
The legislators observed the need for hazard allowance for frontline health workers and for publication of names, bank verification numbers, and pictures of vulnerable Nigerians who benefited from the palliatives. The Presidential Task Force explained that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is addressing the plight of Nigerians in China as moves to bring back Nigerians who wish to return from other countries is ongoing. The arrival of the Chinese medical personnel into Nigeria and need to monitor their 14 days quarantine period also came to the fore. Minister of Information and Culture Alhaji Lai Mohammed advised Nigerians to guard against fake news on COVID-19, describing the story of alleged spending of 1 billion naira on SMS by NCDC as one of such unrealistic stories.
We are taking adequate measures, but I want to see the opportunity to thank Facebook, because the agreement between us and Facebook is that once we flag that kind of story, Facebook removes it or we stamp it. Fake news. It's not that the civil senator just showed me now that particular thing has been stamped fake news.
This is the 5th meeting involving the leadership of the National Assembly and government organizations on the measures to contain the virus. National Assembly, NTA News.
You're watching the news at 10 and NTA News 24, reaching you live from Abuja, the nation's capital. Still to come.
Fire outbreak within Ikeja Airport Hotel premises. Details of this and more when we return. Please stay with us.
The main way coronavirus spread is when infected people sneeze and cough. Small droplets of fluid expelled by cough or sneezes are laced with viruses looking for new respiratory tracts to infect. When a sick person sneezes around someone who is healthy, the virus can land in the nose, mouth, or even the eyes, causing an infection. Symptoms can include fever, cough, shortness of breath. Symptoms may appear within 2 to 14 days. Seek medical advice if you develop symptoms and have been in close contact with a person known to have COVID-19, or if you live or have recently been in an area with ongoing spread of COVID-19. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, Africa's largest television network.
Now, today is day 11 of the lockdown enforcement by the federal government, and it coincides with the Good Friday, which Christian faithfuls around the world celebrate in the commemoration of the death of Jesus Christ.
How are churches in the Federal Capital Territory observing this day? Let's join Oyemi Ajayi.
All right, thank you very much, studio. Yeah, the Good Friday commemorates the crucifixion of Jesus Christ and his death on Calvary. It also coincides with the Jewish observance of the Passover. It brings to reflection the life and death of Jesus Christ, as well as the cost Christ paid on the cross of Calvary. We are here at the Catholic Archdiocese, that is the Church of Assumption in Asokoro, Abuja. Normally, this church is always filled to the brim in observance of this day. But as you can see, there are no cars, no one here, and the reason is not far-fetched, the observance of the sit-at-home order. I have with me Reverend Father Christopher Nubia to give us more insight about what Good Friday is all about.
Why are we talking about today as Good Friday? It is good because Christ wholeheartedly died for the sake of all of us. He took our sins away and he said, "It is finished." He didn't say, "I am finished," but he said, "It is finished." It means that salvation has come to its accomplishment. Because we have the stages of divine revelation. The first revelation started with the creation of Adam and Eve and ended with the fall of the people of Israel talking about the flood when God destroyed the world. After the destruction of the world, then we have the second part of the God's revelation. That is beginning with our father in faith, Abraham, time to the time of the prophet. Then the prophet talked about the Messiah who will come. Eventually, the Messiah came. And that Messiah is what we celebrate today.
Yeah, here we are at the First Baptist Church, Garki, Abuja, and the view is also the same, where there are no congregants around to commemorate the day in the church, but definitely at their respective homes. Here with me is the pastor of the church, that's Reverend Dr. Israel Akonji. This day, normally, there's meant to be the church is meant to be filled to the brim, but as it is, there is none here. How is the church commemorating the day?
What we're just able to do is to keep praying with one another. We use our telephones to send messages around, text messages, and then during services like this, I alone am streamed by a cameraman, just one man, and from there we go to the Facebook and go to the YouTube and try to share the message of the occasion with people in their various homes.
What's your message in times like this? What do you have for Nigeria?
What my message is for Nigeria is that help from above is nearby. We are in a situation where we cannot do much for ourselves except to stay at home, be washing our hands, be keeping social distance, and obeying what the government says. That's not too much we can do. There are people that are outside risking their lives. The people of the media, the security people, the medical people, doctors and other people, military and paramilitary, they are all outside. A lot of essential works are going on, because if they don't go on, we cannot even be inside. We cannot stay inside. Imagine people working with electricity and all this. If they don't go to do their jobs, then the homes we are staying in will drive us out. We will not be able to stay in. So all I'm saying is that at this time, we should continue to pray and trust God that help is coming. My message to Nigerians is that help is nearby. Help is nearby. Help is on the way. And soon and very soon, all of us will celebrate our togetherness again.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for your time. And like the Reverend Father has said, two things. One, it is finished. Then the other one, help is nearby. Coronavirus is finished, like what he has said, and the anticipation and hope for the manifestation is what many are actually looking at. And that's it from here for now. I am Oyeyemi Ajayi. Bye for now.
Many thanks, Oyeyemi, for that insight. And to further discourse and talk about the significance of today to the Christendom and to Christians all over the world, we have in the studio live with us Reverend Israel Akonji, the chairman Can North Central and senior pastor, First Baptist Church, Gariki. Now, earlier, Pastor, we had a clip of you, talking to Oyeyemi Ajayi as regards the significance of today. Can you expatiate more on today's significance to Christendom?
Thank you very much. Today is a very special day for Christians. We call it Good Friday. But what I always tell people is that if you look at that day, though we call it Good Friday, it is Good Friday for us, but for Jesus Christ, who came as the Lamb of God, the Lamb that was sacrificed, it was actually a painful, a bad, a sad Friday. Because Jesus was denied, Jesus was disowned, Jesus was deserted, Jesus was mocked, Jesus was beaten, Jesus was misjudged. Every kind of negative thing happened to him. He was even spiritually provoked. They were even asking him, if he called himself the Son of God, he should come off the cross. And Jesus told his disciples, see, I can request of my Father in heaven to send 12 legions of angels to come and fight, but I'm not fighting. So Jesus really had a very hard time, a painful time, a time of sorrow. But he did all that in order to take away our own sin. On that cross, when Jesus said, Father, forgive them, what he was saying is, Father, forgive them, but punish me. I'm here to take their punishment. So Jesus came as the Lamb of God to take away the sin of the world. The reason we celebrate is that he became our substitute on the cross to take our own place so that we will be forgiven. So punish me, but forgive them and release them. judge me, but acquit them. That's what Jesus was saying. So he came in actually to take away our sin. And that is why we rejoice. The joy is that Jesus became God's own sacrifice once and for all to take away the sin of the world. We don't need to be sacrificing bulls and rams and goats again, because Jesus is that one sacrifice that washes away our sin and connects us back to God as children of God. That is why we celebrate.
Okay, Reverend Father, sir. So it's really a time of forgiveness. Now, is there any place in the Bible where there is advice to the Christian faithfuls on what they should do at a time when there is a pandemic and when there is a sort of celebration, so to speak?
Well, the entire season is a season that is celebrating God's gift of love to mankind. He sent Jesus Christ as a gift. The Bible says, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. And Jesus came for the purpose of dying for the sin of mankind. Now, because God has done this by giving us Jesus, and Jesus came to sacrifice his life for mankind to be reconciled to God. Jesus teaches us, and the Word of God teaches us, that we should go with the Spirit of Christ and live in love and sacrifice too for one another. Therefore, during this pandemic, each one of us should look for various ways wherein we can be of assistance to people who are in difficulties. There are those who have no food. There are those who have no money. There are those who cannot even buy medication. There are people that are even far away, and we know them. We may be able to use electronic means to be able to send some little money here and there. Because we have received God's own help, we are supposed to help others. So that is how the season connects with the pandemic. The pandemic offers us opportunity to render help, tremendous help to various people. And because Jesus Christ himself gave his life for us, then we too should go and be sacrificial to other people. Try to check on them, try to help them, assist those who have no food, and assist the poor people around. In doing this, and even the sick people, praying for them, praying for the doctors, you are offering your time, offering your energy spiritually, asking God for intervention, because ultimately it is God that will help us out of this pandemic, and we have a role to play in praying. That prayer itself is a sacrificial way of living.
Thank you very much, Reverend Father. We'll go on a short break now, and we'll be back with more stories. Please stay with us.
James, I don't know. You need to answer your call. This. Hello?
Is this Mr. Peter? I'm calling from the NCDC. Your friend, Mr. James Okripocha, was brought in this morning and tested positive for the coronavirus. He mentioned that he had been in close contact with you.
God forbid bad thing.
Sir, I am not saying that you have the virus, but you have spent some time with him over the past 14 days, and it is better if you self-isolate immediately.
I don't know any James at all. Even only James in the Bible that I know as a good Christian.
Sir, he showed us pictures.
Now, wow. If you have come in contact with someone who has tested positive for the coronavirus, self-isolating is key to protecting those around you. Remember, viruses don't move, people do. Stopping the spread is in your hands.
This message is from the Akinfade Foundation in partnership with the National Orientation Agency with support from MacArthur Foundation.
Good to have you back with us. Meanwhile, the Inspector General of Police, IGP Adamu, has directed the commissioners of police in states where the social restriction orders have been in place to continue with the due enforcement of the orders, while felicitating with the Nigerian Christian community as Christendom commemorates the crucifixion, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. The IGP calls on religious leaders in Lagos, Ogun, and the Federal Capital Territory, as well as other states affected by the restriction order, to continue to cooperate with relevant government agencies and use their leadership positions to encourage worshippers to observe prayers and worship programs in the confines of their homes. The IGP expresses deep concern that for the first time in the annals of history, circumstances call for restrictions on social gatherings, which inevitably is also affecting religious programs of all faiths. He therefore enjoins Nigerians to see the restriction in the light of the symbolism of Easter, which connotes sacrifice, tolerance, perseverance, love, and ultimate triumph.
Now, there is no other time the hope of victory over circumstances of life which Easter brings is more relevant to mankind than now. President, Christian Association of Nigeria, Reverend Samson Ayakunle, in his Easter message, said this is due to the fact that the people are forced to celebrate Easter for the first time in over 100 years in a lockdown. In a message released by the Special Assistant to President and Media and Publicity, Adebayo Oladeji, Reverend Samson Ayakunle said the coronavirus disrupt the human activities cannot deter the churches from the joy and victory of over all evils which Christians uniquely resurrection from death brought to mankind. Reverend Ayakunle urged all local churches to make relief packages available to the poor among them, as this is the time to know who the true Christians are. Greatly commend both the federal and state government for rising up strongly to confront the coronavirus pandemic and urge them not to deter in confronting it headlong until COVID-19 is kicked out of Nigeria completely.
A car parked within the premises of Ikeja Airport Hotel along Obafemi Awolowo Way in Lagos has been gutted by fire. 3 vehicles, a Toyota Coaster bus, a Honda Civic salon car, and a Cadillac Escalade car with unknown registration number were burnt beyond recognition in the process. The office of a private company was affected by the fire, while the hotel building was spared. Emergency responders and the Lagos State Fire Service have contained the inferno. Investigation is underway to ascertain the cause of the fire.
Now, as the globe continues to try to curtail the spread of coronavirus, cities of the world that have been able to keep it at bay say the instrument is not technological in nature. They, however, says discipline and dedication plus love for the nation pulled them out from the deliberation of the spread of the COVID-19. Details with Kolo Mohammed.
Hello and welcome. Good to have you along. Even as Africa is only beginning to confront the magnitude of the shock caused by this pandemic, we need to wrap our minds around the basic reality. We're in the early stages of what is likely going to become a serious or cascading crisis, and getting back to anything resembling a normal life may remain at bay unless we find some way to cooperate and manage this crisis objectively and adopting assertive discipline. Observe stay at home, practice healthy distancing.
But stop transferring the coronavirus to other people. Even somebody without, when you have coronavirus, you don't report yourself. Even if you transfer this virus to your parents, they will be jailed. They will be jailed if he transfer to his own family without reporting. Need to show you the discipline system of China. And people, of course, now, everybody, when they say stay home, they stay home. When they talk about managing ourselves, people are talking about managing ourselves is one of the donation to the country.
The first phase has a major healthcare crisis. The next phase might be economic paralysis, and this may send multiple countries to their knees. The lockdown alone is having eyebrows raised in a manner suggestive of dissatisfaction. An expert says online banking can ease the strain on absence of movement in meeting domestic and social needs.
During this challenge of COVID-19 pandemic, yes, there has been a lot of awareness about the use of online banking platforms, payment channels, etc. Of course, the starting point is for people to embrace banking as a service. So it is that customer of a bank that would have his account or our account, that would also be able to get enrolled on the digital platforms. You have your debit cards, which is commonly referred to as ATM card, even though you can use it on other platforms like point-of-sale terminals, for online payments, etc., etc.
The problem is broad and global. The response cannot be increasingly narrow. Together, let's get our economy and businesses back on sustainable track, better than as it were. My name is Kula Muhammad. It pays to stay safe and observe healthy distancing. Thank you and goodbye for now.
Thank you very much, Kolo. Now, about 5,000 residents of Ekiti State have benefited from the conditional cash transfer of the federal government to alleviate their challenges during the lockdown to curtail the spread of COVID-19.
Yemi Delemo reports that the We of Ado Ekiti commended the federal government's initiative to provide succor for the less privileged.
The conditional cash transfer program is aimed at reducing poverty and giving the beneficiaries sense of belonging to make them pull through the hardship occasioned by the government lockdown to curtail the spread of coronavirus in the state. The beneficiaries in Ekiti State, totaling about 5,000, said the stay-at-home order affected them in many ways, but the federal government support came at a time it is highly needed, expressing appreciation to the government for putting smiles on their faces.
At least I didn't have anything before, but I thank God that I can be able to establish business, and I'm sending provision now.
Presenting the cash of 20,000 naira each to beneficiaries comprising of January to April payment, Ekiti State Governor Dr. Kaude Fayemi represented said the assistance is to cushion the effect of the lockdown on the less privileged and uplift their household during this period.
It's a government that puts the people in the center of all their plans.
A We of Ado Ekiti, Oba Rufus Adejugbe, commended the federal and the Ekiti State government.
I thank the government for taking the initiative, but to continue to talk to our subjects and the way to do among them. This is time for them to come and assist the less privileged.
The program is one of the government poverty alleviation initiatives to lead many Nigerians out of poverty, as promised by President Muhammadu Buhari. In Ado Ekiti, Yemi Dalemo, NTA News.
And in the meantime, the Abia State government has commenced the distribution of food items and cash to vulnerable people in the state to cushion the effect of the lockdown imposed by the government due to the coronavirus pandemic.
The distribution of relief materials to the poorest of the poor was made through some selected churches and mosques in the state. Chiere Okoli has the details.
The churches that took delivery of their locations, the governor who spoke through his deputy expressed hope that with sustained compliance, Abia will defeat the pandemic and assured that the exercise will be continuous until all vulnerable persons in the state are reached.
Bring in some palliative measures to assist our people in this very, very precarious and trying period.
Abia State Chairman of Christian Association of Nigeria, CAN, and the Chief Imam of Central Mosque thanked the governor for the gesture and promised to distribute accordingly.
People who depend on cutting grasses in the village before they eat, please make sure that this food, these things, get to them.
Over 2,000 bags of rice, 1,500 bags of beans, 23 million naira, and other relief materials were distributed. In Umuahia, Chinyere Okoli, NTA News.
Now, proper mechanism for the disbursement of intervention fund recently approved by the federal government to upgrade and support states' healthcare facilities in Nigeria will help the country achieve universal health coverage.
This is the view of some Nigerians while commending President Muhammadu Buhari for the approval of 500 billion naira to improve the nation's economy crippled by the coronavirus pandemic. Odwak Etem completes the story.
In order to address the global health threat, COVID-19, and the nation's economic challenges, President Muhammadu Buhari had recently given approval for a 500 billion naira stimulus package as part of an integrated policy framework to ensure that Nigeria's healthcare system and economy are sufficiently supported. The decision by the federal government prompted reactions from Nigerians who described the move as a step in the right direction.
I think the president has a very important vision concerning the country. I am so optimistic that the money that the president has released would cushion a lot of things, especially when it comes to the health sector.
Others believe the fund will be utilized effectively.
I think it was a decision in the right direction. That I also believe that that money will be used for the purpose in which it is meant for.
If this money is being released, they should know that this money is being used for the sake of the people, the sake of Nigeria. So it should be used properly and sincerely.
The proposed intervention fund, according to the federal government, would be utilized to upgrade and support states in improving health facilities, as well as finance the creation of a special public works program, among others. In Uyo, Uduak Etam, NTA News.
Now, going by the 1 week of the total lockdown to contain the spread of coronavirus pandemic in the state, residents and business operators say the palliatives from federal and state governments are timely, but must be deployed appropriately so that the aim will not be defeated.
Nsukako Kone on special monitoring of awareness and compliance in rural communities in Akwa Ibom. Our report.
As the federal and Akwa Ibom state governments come up with palliatives to assist the people as the lockdown continues, the level of compliance has really yielded positive impact in the rural areas. A visit to some local government areas in the states, shops and other businesses are totally locked down. Some of the people who spoke on the federal and state government palliatives were of the opinion that government should ensure that the poor are the real beneficiaries.
Nigerians, it should be distributed to all Nigerians, not only the poor. Who are the poor? Nobody is written on his forehead poor. So
those who are poor, not rich people. If you have anything that you have done and maybe you have been able to feed yourself, I think your name's supposed not to be.
The state government, we are working around the clock to ensure that we can get relief materials to people.
It is the hope of the people that the palliative would be shared appropriately. In Uyo, Nsikak Okon, NTA News.
Now, the medical protective items delivered to Nigeria by the China Civil Engineering Construction Corporation have been decontaminated in line with international health regulations.
Onagari Five-Face reports that the aircraft and crew members were also disinfected to ensure that the coronavirus is not carried into the country from China.
Items decontaminated include test kits, ventilators, disinfection machine, disposable medical masks, rubber gloves, protective gowns, goggles, infrared thermometers, and face shields. Performed by environmental health officers, the exercise is aimed at protecting Nigeria from possible COVID-19 infection through the items coming from China, which had a high burden of the virus weeks ago.
For now, we can categorically say that this flight has been given the clean bill of health to be able to disembark from Abuja to Lagos. The next stage of the decontamination is we are going to decontaminate the risk area using heavy equipment that we have deployed for this assignment.
On arrival in Lagos, further decontamination will be carried out before the items are cleared for distribution and use. Meanwhile, plans are underway by the Ministry of Environment to decontaminate all the 4 international airports which are gateways into Nigeria. In Abuja, Onengiye Fineface, NTA News.
And the federal government says it will keep collaborating with other tiers of government in its quest to contain COVID-19 in Nigeria.
Minister of Special Duties and Intergovernmental Affairs, George Akume, while inspecting some relief materials put in place by Association of Local Government of Nigeria, ALGON, emphasized that collective responsibility remains a major antidote in fighting the pandemic. Mitari Apen reports.
Nigeria has been active in containing the coronavirus pandemic. The Presidential Task Force has been engaging various stakeholders to curb the spread of the pandemic, and series of donations have come from corporate bodies and individuals to complement the federal government's drive. Minister of Special Duties and Intergovernmental Affairs, George Akume, says the federal government stands together with all tiers of government to defeat the virus.
I thank our God for this wonderful intervention. Working collectively, awareness on the part of all of us, these things will continue to flow to where they're intended to be used.
What we have in the cartons is rice, spaghetti, Maggi, and cooking oil. We have around 2,000 cartons, and we distribute them to the different parts of the country.
Besides commending Algon for the initiative, the minister enjoined all Nigerians to continually adhere to all safety tips released by the Nigeria Center for Disease Control. In Abuja, Mitaire Ikwen, NTA News.
And although no case of coronavirus has been recorded in Borno State, the governor, Babagana Umaru Zulum, has given assurance of preventive measures put in place in the state to fight against COVID-19.
My deputy governor, who is the chairman of the coronavirus pandemic committee, is doing very well. We have stopped vehicular movement into Maiduguri, but passengers are good, unless if and only if such movements are very necessary. Our indigents coming from abroad, we stop them from coming, and if they must come, I think we are taking them straight to the isolation centers. We have huge number of IDP camps. We have taken some measures, including frequent checkings.
Now, it is one thing to see or have a need, and another to fashion out ways of addressing the need. This, the National Youth Service Corps, NYSC, is doing by presenting handmade face masks to government as the nation continues to work towards combating COVID-19. Olayinka Ojo reports.
Great economies of the world today is dependent on the contributions of entrepreneurs. This belief is what made the NYSC introduce the skills acquisition and entrepreneurial development into the scheme more than 7 years ago in different skill sets. For youth corps members who chose fashion designing, the orientation camp is where the acquisition of the fashion skills began. And as the world continued to contain the spread of COVID-19, the NYSC decided to produce several hundreds of face masks as part of their contribution to the fight against the pandemic.
Instead of us going home to go and rest like every other person is just resting and sleeping, hiding away from the sickness, why not we come out, do this face mask that can actually prevent people from getting infected?
Our corps members rose to the challenge. We were encouraged by the ministry. There's a need for us also to think out of the box to see what the NYSC can bring to bear as a contribution to the fight against the pandemic.
But because of social distancing, two among the youth corps members, led by the Director General of the NYSC, Brigadier General Shuaibu Ibrahim, decided to present the face masks to the Ministry of Youth and Sports Development for onward presentation to government.
What the corpers have done here is not just to wait for happenstance to come upon us, but they have taken the initiative to see what they can do. We have seen your sanitizers. We are hoping that very soon we'll be able to put a facility together that will help you produce more. We have seen the soaps that have been put in place as well. All we want to do as a nation is to see how we can promote local production.
With the belief in service above self, aside production of face masks, the NYSC also took upon itself to produce liquid soap and hand sanitizers, which they distributed to the poor and the vulnerable who cannot afford it. Olayinka Ojo, NTA News.
Now, the National Space Research and Development Agency has presented a space-based facility equipped with telemedicine mobile clinic to combat COVID-19 in the country. The Minister of Space, Science and Technology, while inspecting the van, says the project is to take a world-class hospital to the doorsteps of Nigerians. Adebola Brooksland Sunday has the details.
country. Government is working round the clock to curtail the spread of the virus. The telemedicine equipment is to tackle health challenges at community level. The van is equipped with health services interventions like patients' information, communications, eye, nose and throat scope, which is done in a way that it enables transmission of images and medical data for diagnosis and disease management.
With this facility providing telemedicine, we can deliver the same medical service, which you can get in Lagos, you can get it in any of our rural areas.
We'll do everything possible to ensure that we'll bring this to the forefront, to ensure that the Senate does what it's supposed to do.
If government buy into our project, we are hoping that in no distant time, our president should be filed in all local governments of the Federation.
The system, NASDA says, will help improve information flow between health workers, patients, and Nigeria's Center for Disease Control.
It's not that you collect data, you wait, you get to the hospital. No, from that, when you get that data, it can be in NCDC immediately.
It's a specialist hospital. And the beauty again about it is that this is taking hospital to people's homes.
Minister, alongside the Science and Technology Committee members from the National Assembly, were at the National Agency for Science and Engineering Infrastructure to inspect the made in Nigeria ventilators and safety tunnels.
I am so happy that work is going on even a more advanced ventilator that will be used in our hospitals in post-COVID-19 era.
The products are ready to be deployed to fight coronavirus in the country. Adebola, Brooklyn Sunday, NTA News.
After another fresh attack on Mbrazongo village in Bassa local government area of Plateau State, which led to the killing of 4 people, including a pastor, and destruction of properties, Governor Simon Lalong has ordered security agencies to go after the killers and fish them out to face justice. A statement by Director of Press and Public Affairs to the Governor of Plateau State, Makut Simon Machan, indicates that Governor Simon Lalong expressed disgust over the barbaric actions of the criminals who do not only have respect for the sanctity of human lives. The governor laments that it is unfortunate that they choose the period when the state is working hard to confront the coronavirus pandemic to perpetuate their murderous acts. Governor Lalong, who sympathized with the victims of the killings, said government will not tolerate the senseless acts of murder unleashed on innocent citizens. He has directed traditional and community leaders to cooperate with security agencies in identifying the attackers, who he maintains cannot be shielded, as these attacks have persisted in recent weeks, a situation that is highly unacceptable to his administration.
And that concludes the news at 10 on NTA News 24. Many thanks for watching. I'm Abdul Malik Adio.
Thank you for sharing part of your morning with